This webinar gives advice on importing customer and supplier ledgers into foreCASH. foreCASH can accept a ledger file generated from your account system in either Excel or CSV file formats. This demo looks at files from Sage 50 and 0, but the concepts apply equally to all accounting systems. Looking first at a summary age ledger from Sage 50, we have a single line for each customer account, with a customer account ID, a name, and a number of aging columns. The report options include an export function, which brings up a list of file types. Sage 50 offers both Excel and CSV options. The Excel option may seem simpler, but for Sage 50 the CSV option is actually better. Looking at the Excel format, once exported, Sage retains a lot of header formatting, which results in merged columns, which can lead to confusion and misalignment when importing it into foreCASH. By contrast, the CSV file is a lot cleaner in terms of layout, although this format does tag on a few extra columns, which we can ignore. The last thing to note before we import a file is that foreCASH can accept a detailed ledger with a line for every invoice. foreCASH can import the invoice date, and if the report format includes it, an invoice payment due date. You then have the option of setting foreCASH to use these dates when scheduling payments. If all your terms work from a month end plus a number of days, then a summary ledger is adequate. But if you have strict payment days, say 30 days from the date of invoice, then importing a detailed by invoice ledger is better. We'll look now at the foreCASH program itself, but just before we import a file, it's worth noting that if foreCASH finds a new account in the imported file, it will apply the default terms noted in foreCASH. You can see where these are set up. It's worth making sure you get these right before you do your first import. Okay, so let's import a file. We can first choose whether we're importing a supplier or a customer ledger, and you can browse to find the file you wish to import. I'll stick with the one that I've already got. If we click Next, foreCASH is opening up a preview of a file. There are a lot of options here, but assuming your report format is the same each month, you only need to amend these settings once. This lower grid gives a preview of the first 10 and the last 5 lines in your file. I can see here that my file has 2 header rows, so I'm just going to adjust the number, and you can see that the first 2 lines only now will be excluded. I don't have a footer at all, so I'm just going to uncheck this box so that we include all lines right to the bottom of the file. If I scroll across the preview, I can see I've got data going up to column 14, and there all seem to be 10 aging columns, and I also had an unaged column of data. This is a list in order of the fields that foreCASH is expecting at the moment, but if I update first the number of fields, the number of aged columns, and note that there's an unaged amount, you can see that the fields have now changed. I now need to make sure that I get the fields in the right order. So I've got supplier reference looks okay, and the supplier name. The total seems to align. Here actually I've got unaged before I get into the monthly amounts. So at the moment unaged is sitting at the bottom of the list, so I'm going to bring that up until it sits just after the total. And as I've done that, you can see that the headings that foreCASH is expecting is now changed, and they seem to line up now fairly well all the way through the aging categories. There are a few checkboxes at the top here which I haven't used on this occasion, including a terms reference which allows foreCASH to import a description from your accounting system of the terms for an account, which can then be mapped so that terms for each account are automatically set rather than using the default that we saw a moment ago. We're not going to cover those today, but if you need help with them, please refer to the manual or contact us at support. The last thing I'm just going to check at the bottom here, because we're dealing with a supplier ledger, is whether amounts payable to suppliers are positive and negative. And we can see here that it is negative, which is the setting I've got here, so that's okay. So that looks like we're okay to proceed, and I'm going to click next. foreCASH has just confirmed that all this mapping work has been saved, so the next time you come into the screen, assuming you've got the same format, you'll be able to click straight through. foreCASH has done some simple validation just to make sure that we have numbers where we expect them and don't have any text or dates in the wrong place. Everything seems to be okay on this occasion, but if we did have an issue, we'd see a report down at the bottom of the screen here. We're ready now to complete the import, so if I click next, the import's completed. foreCASH is noting that we found some new suppliers, the default rules have been applied, and it's also confirming the total amount that was imported, which we can check back to our original ledger. That's one ledger. We'll jump back now to look at the customer side. Again, I've got a file here pre-selected. This time the file was actually generated by Xero accounting system. And there's one thing to note with the Xero file. If I look here, I've got some customer names, but I don't actually have an account ID. So I'm going to uncheck this first field here, company ID code. foreCASH does need a company ID code, but it will just duplicate the customer name wherever it needs it in the program. I've got a fairly long header in this file, 7 rows long, so I'm just going to exclude those top 7 lines, and I have got a footer in this file currently set to 2, and that looks okay. If I look at the aging, okay, and actually let's just double check the number of columns. In fact, I've just got 7 columns here, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months of aging. I'll change that to 5, and 7 columns in total. Okay, just need to move the company name up slightly. Company name 1, 2, 3, 4, and the total is actually the last amount there. Okay, so I think I'm ready to go. I'll click next, just save the mapping ready for next time, and again it's just checking the amounts all cross balance, and we haven't got any text where there shouldn't be any. That looks okay. And we can complete the import. Again, it's identify some new customers and just made us aware of that. Again, we've got confirmation amount, which we can check back to our ledger, and it's also reminding us here that we've got some new accounts. So why don't we go and look at those new accounts now. I'll go into the details. The first time you visit the ledger detail after doing an import, if there are any new accounts, they will be at the top of the listing, and this column here will be marked yes, an item is new, just so you can identify any accounts that haven't been brought into foreCASH before. First time you can see we've got quite a few, but each month end we may just get 1 or 2 new ones. And if, for example, ABC Warehouse don't use the standard terms of 30 days net month end, perhaps they give you 6 days net month end, you can change terms for that specific account. The other thing we can do once we've imported the ledger is start to think about who your major cost of sales suppliers are and whether you want to rank them or make them a key account. So I've got a few here: high definition TV, JVC, Panasonic. You can see I'm double clicking on those. Alternatively, I can highlight them and move them across. And they're now appearing in the key cost of sales supplier list, which means they'll get their own line in the cash flow to make them highly visible for you. Now occasionally you may have suppliers that don't appear in the list. Perhaps you always pay cash with order, or it may be you've got some new suppliers that you're anticipating that you want to put some costs against. So I can just come to this last tab in the ledger driver section and add a new account. So I might just call this Z new supplier, or whatever is relevant to your business. Maybe that going forward I just want to, or similarly, forecast. I may have some very specific generic categories. So past ledgers, a generic customer called Euro sales. And I may create a customer called UK sales. And again, having created those customers, if those are my major groups I want to be able to see going forwards, then I can add them to the list. I hope this demo has been useful, but if you do need further help, please contact support@forecash.co.uk. Thank you for watching.